You don't feel your gut getting damaged. There's no warning light, no sharp pain, no sudden collapse. You just eat what everyone else eats. And slowly, silently, the protective lining inside your intestines begins to thin. The balance of bacteria begins to shift. Your immune system starts reacting more than it should. And the foods causing it? They're not rare. They're not extreme. They're everyday staples. Today, we're breaking down the common foods that quietly attack your gut and why the damage spreads far beyond digestion. Let's start with one of the most overlooked. Food number 1, processed meats. Hot dogs, sausages, bacon, deli slices. The issue isn't just the meat itself, it's what's added. Nitrates, nitrites, preservatives, and what happens when they're exposed to high heat. Under intense cooking temperatures, these compounds can combine with proteins and form irritants that stress the intestinal lining. Add charring or deep frying, and you create additional reactive chemicals. Your gut lining is extremely thin, only one cell thick in many areas. Repeated exposure to these compounds increases oxidative stress and microdamage. Over time, that damage reduces barrier strength, allowing fragments of food and bacteria to slip through. That's when immune activation begins, often without noticeable digestive symptoms at first. Food number 2, low-fat pasteurized. Dairy. Milk itself isn't the villain, but modern processing changes its structure. Pasteurization destroys natural enzymes like lactase and lipase that help break down lactose and fats. It also removes beneficial bacteria that once supported gut balance. When fat is stripped out, the ratio of certain milk proteins increases, especially a 1-beta-casein. In some individuals, this protein breaks down into inflammatory fragments that irritate intestinal tissue. Without protective fat and enzymes, these proteins move through the digestive tract faster and contact gut cells more directly. For some people, this leads to bloating or discomfort. For others, it leads to subtle immune activation and low-grade inflammation they never connect to dairy. Food number 3, healthy. Processed snacks. Granola bars, protein bars, flavored yogurts, plant-based milks. They look clean. They're marketed as better choices, but the ingredient list often tells a different story. Added sugars, refined oils, stabilizers, emulsifiers, artificial flavors. Many of these ingredients are designed to extend shelf life and improve texture, not to support your microbiome. Several additives can thin the mucus layer that protects the intestinal wall. That layer acts like a shield between bacteria and your cells. When that shield weakens, bacteria press closer to the surface. The immune system notices. Inflammatory signaling increases, and the gut environment becomes more reactive. The danger here is deception. These foods feel safe, so they're eaten daily. Food number 4, emulsifiers and additives. Polysorbate 80, carrageenan, xanthan gum. These ingredients are used to keep foods smooth and stable. They help fat and water mix evenly. But inside your gut, they can disrupt protective barriers. Research suggests certain emulsifiers weaken the mucus layer that lines the intestines. Others may interact with immune cells, triggering defensive responses. When the mucus barrier thins, bacteria can interact more directly with intestinal cells. That increases permeability and inflammation. The effect isn't immediate pain, it's chronic irritation. And chronic irritation slowly changes the balance of bacteria, encouraging strains that thrive in inflammatory environments. Food. Number 5. Alcohol. Alcohol is chemically classified as a solvent. That matters. It dissolves protective structures in the gut. Alcohol damages enterocytes, the surface cells responsible for absorbing nutrients. It reduces mucus production and increases intestinal permeability. When permeability rises, bacterial endotoxins, especially LPS, can leak into circulation. Even small increases in circulating endotoxin levels can trigger systemic inflammation. Alcohol also shifts the microbial balance, reducing beneficial strains while allowing opportunistic bacteria to expand. This isn't about occasional celebration. It's about repeated exposure. And repeated exposure changes the terrain inside your gut. Food number 6. Modern wheat and gluten. Modern wheat has been bred for yield and texture. One side effect is significantly higher gluten content compared to ancient grains. Gluten contains gliadin, which can stimulate zonulin, a protein that loosens tight junctions between intestinal cells. When those junctions loosen, intestinal permeability increases. Not everyone experiences celiac disease, but many people experience subclinical sensitivity that promotes inflammation without dramatic symptoms. Frequent exposure means repeated stimulation of the gut barrier. And repeated stimulation makes the lining more reactive over time. It's not just about gluten itself, it's about frequency and cumulative load. Food number 7. Artificial sweeteners. Aspartame, sucralose, acetylsulfame potassium. These sweeteners reduce calories, but they don't pass through your microbiome unnoticed. Studies show artificial sweeteners can reduce populations of beneficial bacteria and alter the ratio of major bacterial groups. This shift affects metabolic signaling, insulin sensitivity, and inflammatory tone. Some sweeteners also influence neurotransmitter pathways linked to serotonin and mood. Ironically, individuals trying to reduce sugar intake may create imbalances that increase cravings and metabolic instability. The gut doesn't care about calories. It responds to chemical signals, and artificial sweeteners send confusing ones. Food number 8. Seed oils, canola, soybean, corn, sunflower. These oils are industrially processed using high heat, high pressure, and chemical extraction methods. They are rich in omega-6 fatty acids. In balanced amounts, omega-6 is necessary. But excessive intake shifts the body toward pro-inflammatory signaling. These oils also oxidize easily, especially when reheated. Oxidized fats generate reactive molecules that damage intestinal cells and increase oxidative stress. Over time, repeated exposure to oxidized oils weakens the gut lining and promotes inflammatory responses. The problem isn't one serving. It's the fact that these oils are in nearly everything. Food. Number 9. Fried foods. Frying multiplies stress on the gut. Extreme heat oxidizes oils further. Advanced glycation end products form during high-temperature cooking. Most fried foods are coated in refined flour, which adds another inflammatory trigger. Fried food also alters bile acid composition, which affects microbial balance in the intestines. Repeated exposure damages microvilli, the tiny projections responsible for nutrient absorption. When absorption decreases and inflammation rises, gut resilience drops. Fried foods don't just sit heavily in your stomach. They shift inflammatory chemistry inside your gut ecosystem. Food number 10. Sugar and refined carbohydrates. White sugar, white flour, highly processed snacks. These break down rapidly into simple sugars. Certain bacteria and yeast thrive on sugar. When sugar intake is high, beneficial bacteria lose competitive ground. Fermentation increases. Gas increases. Inflammatory byproducts accumulate. High sugar intake also drives insulin resistance, which promotes systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation weakens gut barrier integrity. Because sugar is so prevalent, exposure is constant, and constant exposure gradually reshapes the microbial landscape, favoring imbalance over harmony. The bigger pattern. No single food destroys your gut overnight. It's repetition. Daily exposure to irritants shifts bacterial balance. The mucus layer thins, permeability increases, inflammation rises. And because most immune activity lives in the gut, the consequences ripple outward to skin, mood, metabolism, and energy. Your gut is resilient, but it was never designed for constant assault from industrialized food chemistry. Your gut can recover, but it needs space. Reduce frequency, lower cumulative load. Choose whole, minimally processed foods more often, because protecting your gut isn't just about avoiding bloating. It's about protecting the system that regulates your immune strength, your mood stability, and your long-term resilience. Your gut works for you every second. Make sure your everyday foods aren't working against it.